Hello everybody. I'm going to talk about the fork branch pull request squash workflow. This workflow is very popular in open source communities and it is also, I think, the best way for in-house working with Git repository. So let me explain this to you because it has a specific workflow. If you follow that workflow, you're fine. If you don't follow this workflow, you are not fine. I am doing this video in one take. I just want to get it out quickly, so excuse the little us and ahs somewhere. So let's dive in. So the advantages of forking a main repository is, of course, first you have complete freedom in your fork. The next thing is that the central repository is very clean. It does not have any branches, just as the main branch, and yeah, that's it. So it's very clean. That's nice. You could possibly have there like a version 1, version 2 branch or things like that. That's fine, but no feature branches, no branches where we are currently working on. Those are all in the forks. Advantage of that, of course, is that yeah, if a fork gets let's say forgotten or stale, then you know it's terrible if you have that in the main repository, but if it's in a fork, you don't care, right? So by virtue of the squash part is that you get one commit per issue. So you get a very clean issue in issue history or commit history in your main branch. That's really nice to look at, right? You don't want to look at merge commits and forks and all those things. You can see this some way in the Git highway, right? That graph. You just want boom, 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 a really nice linear commit. And that is what you get with this specific workflow. Now, before we start, you need to know some stuff, and that stuff is this. So a fork, you need to know what a fork is. It's a copy of a repository. You need to know what the branch is, right? It's a copy of the main branch where you make commits in, where you work in. That's a very important concept. If you are the kind of person that likes to commit into the main branch, yeah, this is not for you, right? So that's absolutely an anti-pattern, and you should never do that. Then you have a commit, unit of work added to a branch, right? A couple of file changes, you commit it. Then you have a pull request. The pull request you request in the main repository to take your changes and merge them. A squash is the process of taking all your commits and squashing them into one and putting that in the main repository. And then ahead behind means that your fork has more or less commits than the fork branch, right? So your main, if your main is behind, it means that the main repository, sorry, if your fork is behind, it means that the main repository has more commits, which is good. If your fork is ahead, the main repository, the main branch, if your fork is ahead, that's not good, right? So it means you have been committing in the main branch. That is not good. Only your branches can be ahead, not your main branch. Okay, so if you don't know these terms, then you don't want to watch this video, right? You first want to make sure that you know what all these things mean. And if you do, come back and we can continue. So let's take a look at this website. The great Gandalf the Great has decided to create a website and created a repository called mywebsite.git. And Gandalf is making the first prototype index.html, commits it with commits ID CA1, makes a new style sheet, commits it with commit ID B9A, and commits it again, news HTML with commit CCA. Now the website is published and it's becoming very popular, and the issues start pouring in, right? So issue 1, add agenda and blog, and issue 2, protect with login. Well, you can imagine that Gandalf has more important things to do, so he asked help of his friend Frodo. And what Frodo is doing, Frodo is going to make a fork of that repository. So goes to the GitHub site or GitLab, whatever you want, makes a fork, and basically that is an exact copy of the repository of Gandalf, and it's ported to the place where Frodo can work. So you have two repositories which are copied. That's a fork. So Frodo only works in the fork. will never touch this, right? So everything that Frodo does can be done here, and nobody cares what Frodo does here because it's his own fork, right? That's a good thing. So Frodo says, okay, Gandalf, let me start with issue 1, and Frodo is going to make a branch called issue 1, makes agenda.html and commits that to the branch, the issue 1 branch. Right, so it is very important that you make a branch. You cannot work in the main branch. That is not allowed in this workflow, and it will break it. So I will tell you a little bit more about that later. So you always have to make a branch, right? So don't say, well, it's just a small change, I can do it in the main. No, right? Branches are just the required workflow, basically always, but especially in this repository fork workflow. I will explain to you later, but just remember, always create a branch. So a good idea is to take the branch number issue 1, make the branch name the same as the issue, and even do say add agenda and blog, very clear, so you can see the branch and you can immediately relate it to a specific ticket number, so you don't have branches like try 1, try 2, things like that. Those are also an anti-pattern, right? So make really nice named branches like issue 1, add agenda and blog, or just issue 1. Okay, back to the workflow. Agenda.html is committed in this DEE, and then blog.html is committed in this EAA. Great. Now I'm done with this issue, and I want to take these changes, these two files which are in these two commits, and I want to push them into the main repository. So these are the two that we're talking about. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my Frodo location, to that my website.git, and there's a button says, oh, you made changes in issue 1. Do you want to make a pull request? Yes, you want to make a pull request, and that contains the changes of these two commits. So what typically happens then is a review. That can be a running test cases, a peer review, code review, whatever. So there's a review process, and then you get, after the review has completed normally, you get a squash. So that means that all your commits are being squashed into one, or basically all the files that have been changed in all your commits are recommitted into one commit into the master repository. So you can see that's AE7, that is completely different commit than these two. These two commits are no longer needed or required. I mean, this is just a work branch. So what happens is you get these commits, and those are squashed into a new commit. So how do I get this change, AE7, now into my repository? Well, you just go to the website again. The website will tell you you are one commit behind the main website, the forked website, the Gandalf website. What do you want to do? And there's a resync button that allows you to get the changes from that main repository and synchronize it with your main branch in your repository. Okay, so this is what sync does. So great, we are done. So this is the complete workflow. Let me go over that one more time. So we have a fork. Frodo is creating an issue 1 branch, adding agenda.html into a commit, adding blog.html into a commit, and then creates a pull request. The pull request gets a review, the review completes normally, and then we squash the commits into AE7, a new commit, into the main branch of the main repository, and then we synchronize the changes from the main repository into our repository. So basically, yeah, this is the flow, right? We create a branch, we make a pull request, it goes into the main loop, and then we synchronize the main again, and we can start with the next change. So issue 1 is done. We just delete the branch, and we start with issue 2. So issue 2 branch is created, and basically the whole thing starts again, right? So we do a login.html, whatever we have to do for this second issue, but this is the workflow over and over and over again. So this is it. If you follow this, then you are perfectly fine. What you cannot do, and that is the thing that will break this workflow, is start committing in your main branch. So instead of having these agenda.html and block.html in a separate feature branch or issue branch or whatever you want to call it, you are committing it to the main branch, right? So yeah, it's my fork, I can do whatever, right? Sure, you can do whatever, but also be prepared to have a lot of work there, right? And if you follow this workflow, it typically also means that you really don't have the good idea of what this workflow is, and you will bring yourself in trouble. So what happens next? So you commit these two to your main workflow, then you make a pull request, we get a squash and an AE7 as normal. But now you are 2 ahead and 1 behind, right? So now how is this going to happen? So this main branch must always be the same with this main branch. These two branches must always be synchronized. In this fork, you can be behind, but you can never be ahead. So if you are ahead and then you try to sync again, then says, yes, sorry, but there is 2 additional commits in the main and you want to do that one, you have to create a merge. Okay, so then you make a third commit and it goes on top of this. So you will always be out of sync with your main branch. So this is just the fact that why you don't ever have to commit to your main branch in your fork is because of this. This is just trouble and you should never do that, right? Even not for small things, because you always get in problems by the squash. So we're not taking your commits D, E, E, A. We don't put them here and we are automatically synchronized. No, we squash everything. So because of the squash, that will get you in trouble. Right, so I hope you find this useful. Ask questions in the comments. Give me a like and a follow if you want. If you don't want, I don't care. See you next time.